the Houston Rockets. It seems like everything collapsed overnight. Reports were coming out left and right. Russell Westbrook demanded to get traded. And then Eric Gordon, reports came out that he's been unhappy with his role since 2016. I believe the year he won Sixth Man of the Year. He's been unhappy ever since.
Really?
Daniel House has been unhappy with his touches, and he wants more of an offensive load. And he even verbally challenged James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And Harden is still committed to Houston despite all of this. PJ Tucker is upset about his contract. He wants to be getting paid more.
Austin Rivers made some comments too.
Austin Rivers. There's a report that came out that Harden got mad at Rivers because Harden missed a free throw and Rivers was standing. So there's been dysfunction on this Houston team. And Trevor Ariza in 2018, there was a Trevor Ariza situation in 2018 after they lost in Game 7 that the Rockets wanted to bring him back, but Trevor Ariza wouldn't come back unless he got an apology from the Rockets. Because the culture in Houston is that a lot of the players currently and former players feel that they cater too much to their stars. They coddle their stars too much. And a lot of people, current and former, were wondering why they traded Chris Paul and why they traded Clint Capella. There's a lot of dysfunction going on in Houston. People are almost banking on Westbrook getting traded. Who knows what's going to happen with Harden? But at this point, it seems like a mess.
I don't know if you want to start here, but the first thing I would say is I think that their first and biggest mistake that kind of led to this ball of yarn unraveling was trading Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. And it's just because I think it was an unnecessary move that was just for making a move's sake. I think that Chris Paul was a better fit, and you gave up how many picks to get Russell Westbrook? I believe it was multiple first-round picks to get Russell Westbrook.
I wanted to say you missed on a few things. Westbrook reportedly doesn't want to play with James Harden anymore.
Who said that?
That's I'm reading it right now.
Did you know that he commented on that post that Stephen A. Smith posted a clip that said that he doesn't want to play with Harden, and Westbrook said that's not true.
I didn't see him comment.
He said that's not true.
And
there's a lot of reports out there. I know Victor Oladipo is another one.
He just came out and said that's not true.
Yeah,
either.
exactly.
But who? It's
so tough to believe what you hear, because then also, I don't want to get too far off track, but that Victor Oladipo situation, the writer who tweeted out the original tweet then responded when Tom Crean, who was Victor Oladipo's coach at Indiana, and he said that I talked to Victor on the phone and he was upset at me for even asking if it was true. The writer who came out with the report responded to Tom Crean and said, I reached out to the Pacers PR department. I reached out to Victor Oladipo's PR guy and gave him an opportunity to comment back or refute the claims, and I didn't hear anything. So it's hard to, it's hard to take sides. What do you want to believe in these situations?
Yeah, I guess, but I don't think the Westbrook not wanting to play with Harden is true. I think him wanting to leave Houston is true.
I agree with you there. I agree. And I think that it started with Daryl Morey getting out of there, and it just kind of left a sense of uneasiness, and I don't know where they go from here. It almost looks like because here's the deal.
I have a question. Hold on. Why did James Harden get mad at Austin Rivers?
He distracted him.
He distracted him from missing a free throw?
Yeah.
Wow.
That almost sounds like like one of those tweets that you would read on one of those fake burner
I have two
accounts.
things to say.
That's crazy.
One thing is about James Harden, and the second one is about Tillman Fertitta. I'll start with Tillman Fertitta. Tillman Fertitta's plan this whole time was to rebuild the Houston Rockets. After they lost in 2017, or was it 2018, I believe?
I think both
in
years.
Game 7, 2018.
Yeah.
After they lost, he believed they should have won in Game 7. He believed that.
Which they
didn't win.
Should have.
Then I think the nail in the coffin was when they
Kevin
lost in
Durant went
Game 6. KD went down. The whole world was expecting Houston to finally get over the hump and beat Golden State, and they lost again, and they disappointed again. That's when Tillman Fertitta wanted change, and I don't blame him for wanting to rebuild or retool this team, because you brought in a new GM, you brought in a new coach, you want to play differently. You don't want to. You know that this team, you don't have the money to surround this team with more pieces, and they're one. I don't even think they're one piece away. I think they're one superstar away, which they can't get, but they're 2 to 3 role players away or starting caliber players away from winning a championship. They're not a Nerlens Noel away from winning a chip.
Yeah.
They need like 2 to 3 guys that are solid. So he sees that and knows that they're not going to win like that. And that's what I feel like. But then going to James Harden, look, I've been defending James Harden. Everybody knows I'm a huge James Harden fan, but he has to take the blame. He's not a leader. James Harden is a great elite player, but he's not a leader. He can't be the best. He can't be the best leader on a team. It worked with Chris Paul because Chris Paul was the leader.
Yeah.
But then you see these instances with James Harden that are questionable. The viral video of him on the bench with Chris Paul and smacking his hand when Chris Paul was trying to coach him up and tell him what to do, and James Harden gets frustrated. There were reports that Russell Westbrook in a team meeting challenged James Harden to like either, I don't know, play defense or whatever he challenged him to do. I don't know what it was. James Harden got frustrated. He got annoyed. There are reports like this. The CP3 situation. I would think that a guy that you won the most games with like in franchise history, you'd be cool with. Harden doesn't even like call Chris Paul to tell him how's your children doing or, you know, happy birthday to your son. They're not friends
They're just
at
coworkers.
all. Dwight situation. James Harden wanted to run pick and roll. Dwight wanted more post-ups. Another situation that went sideways. Like they just couldn't coexist. And people
Dwight's
forget.
kind of reinvented himself now. All those guys seem to be doing better off now away from Houston.
People forget. Kevin Mchale was the coach for the Rockets. He had success. They made a Western Conference Finals. And he went on and he called James Harden. He's not a leader. He's a passive guy. And when you watch James Harden, he's a passive guy. He doesn't go for the big shots late in games. He's not super aggressive when the going gets tough and the pressure's on. Kevin Mchale has said that. And what did James Harden say? He's a clown. You know, he responded by saying he's a clown. It seems obvious there's a pattern here that James Harden can't take criticism and he can't be the best player and the best leader on the team. That's why I think Philly, it looks good on paper. It's going to be horrible. Embiid and James Harden's personality, that won't work. In Brooklyn, I feel like that's a disaster waiting to happen. The best spot for James Harden is in Miami because they have a culture there that's a excuse my language, it's a no bullshit culture.
Jimmy Butler, who's a leader.
And he is going to be the leader. James Harden can win a championship only if he's not the leader of a team. He can't win if he has to be the leader of a team.
And, you know, it's funny that you say that. I actually saw a video yesterday, I think, and I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but it was from I believe it was a 2018 All-Star game, and it was the All-Star game practice, and Steph Curry was talking to Mike Budenholzer at midcourt during shoot-around. Steph Curry didn't know Budenholzer was mic'd up, and he was saying something along the lines of, I saw James Harden in the locker room, and I congratulated him on, you know, what he's been doing. It's insane, the numbers he's been putting up. And he was like, he told me that he didn't want to be doing it. It was because he had to. He would rather play in a beautiful system. Like the Spurs.
That's the same thing Kevin Durant said before he went to Golden State.
So I think that speaks volumes to your point. If he doesn't want to do what he does in Houston, it's more out of necessity and almost stubbornness because he's put on that leader pedestal. So he feels like he has to play that role. And I just think that the Rockets organization right now is a mess. I think that last year, honestly, if they ran it back with Chris Paul, I still don't think they beat LeBron and Anthony Davis.
No.
I think it gives them a better chance. I think that they would have been a more well-rounded team, especially if they then keep Clint Capella. Maybe it's a competitive series. Who knows? But if they were going to... That move for Russell Westbrook was the worst thing they could have done because now it sets them up in a position where Russell Westbrook has requested a trade. If I'm not mistaken, he formally requested a trade at this point. So where does he go? Who takes him on? And I've been thinking about this for 2 days because there's two different situations. I feel like there's a middle line in the league. There's the good teams and the bad teams. If you're a good team, Russell Westbrook does not benefit you. He's a low-efficiency guy who needs a high usage rate to be his best. And no good team wants him to have the highest usage rate on the team. for the bad teams, he's a perfect fit. He goes in, he gets all the shots, he gets his high usage rate, he wins you some games.
Gets you to the playoffs.
Maybe sneaks you in the playoffs, raises the ticket sales. But is that a guy that you want to give up multiple picks and good assets for? It's such. I was talking to a Knicks fan friend of mine about this, and I said, is this a guy that you want to give up one of your younger assets and multiple first-round picks for when you have the 2021 draft coming up that has Jalen Green, who a lot of people regard as one of the best products since LeBron? Is that something that you want? Do you want him to turn you into an 8th seed so you miss out on that high draft pick? I get a lot of people are against the tanking, but that's the way to go in the NBA if you're a bad team, a bad franchise, and you've had a few bad years.
There is no tanking in the NBA anymore.
This reminds me of the Clippers. It reminds me just like the Clippers. The players complaining Paul George and Kawhi gets too coddled, too baby because they're the stars. This reminds me just like the Clippers, and they're talking about Kawhi is not a leader. Same thing with James Harden. I do agree with you, though, like everything you said. It makes sense, and the Philly thing might blow up because James Harden is a talented player, but he can't be a leader. I think Miami would be a really good spot because Jimmy Butler would challenge him on every night, and he'll be that leader for that team because even in Miami, Jimmy Butler always wasn't the best player every time they played. You know, there's games where Jimmy Butler finished with like 4 points, but he was always that leader, that vocal leader that was always there in everybody's ear. Even Udonis Haslem, who was still, you know, he didn't play, but he was still that vocal leader on that team. So I think that would help James Harden a lot. And I like Miami as a good spot too.
Do you think that he's up for the challenge, though?
He has to be.
One of his that was one of the teams on his wish list.
Yeah, was it Miami? And
it was Miami, Philly, and Brooklyn. So he's definitely up for the challenge.
He has to be. It's no Izzy.
I mean, he has to know what he's signing up for, putting Miami on his wish list.
Come on.
Look at Jimmy's resume. He literally went to Minnesota, took 4
you know
practice
exactly
squad
what you're
players,
walking into,
and took on the starters in a scrimmage. So
now, how does that happen? How do they make that work though? That trade.
And that's another thing. Like, what is that something that? And it goes along with what
I'd rather,
about Westbrook.
if I'm being honest, I'd rather get Harden than Giannis.
No, I agree. I think Harden in the end, but
you can get Giannis for a contract.
Yeah. What does Houston ask for in a trade for Miami? Because in a sense, you will have to trade one of your key young guys. But for Giannis, you really don't have to. You can just go get him.
If you were to bring in Giannis, you're probably not re-signing Bam.
I think Tyler Hero has to go if you're getting James Harden.
I would do it.
At least.
I'm saying you can get, but to get
Hero.
Giannis, you don't need to give up Tyler Hero.
I guess. I know that's true, but at the end of the day, I think if there's a trade available, you should do it for Harden. If I agree that don't blow the whole team up to get him, but if it's there, you do it. Like, no doubt about it.
The thing about the Heat is, like, I agree with you. James Harden could be the guy to put them over the top, and that would be a scary trio if you get Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Bam Adebayo. But what they've done since LeBron
Bam
left,
would not be there.
What they've done since LeBron left has been so it's been so emblematic of what their franchise is. Pat Riley does such a great job. They do such a great job scouting, bringing in young talent, developing it, even bringing in a guy like Goran Dragic that people weren't high on, and he's come in and been an all-star level talent since they brought him there.
Goran Dragic's always been good, though.
Yeah,
I
but
think he had a down year.
He was more of
last year.
And we'll talk about underrated players later, but he has been one of the more underrated players in the league the past few years. They do a good job of finding talent where other people...
Like Derrick Jones Jr.?
Yeah. Even Jimmy Butler was a guy who was not highly regarded around the league after his time in Minnesota, and they brought him in, and look what he did this past season.
I mean, when Goran Dragic signed with Miami in 2014. 2014 in Phoenix, he got traded to Miami, I believe. That year in Phoenix, he averaged 16. The year before, 2013, he averaged 20 for Phoenix.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I just think he goes way too under the radar, and I think that's what Miami does.
I think that too.
They find talent.
Did he make the All-Star year one of those years?
He
only made one with Miami.
One season in Miami.
That's what I was talking about with Miami. Was it that first year?
But he's been an all-star level talent almost every year he's been there, with the exception of 1 year I think he was dealing with injuries. But I just think that they do a really good job of finding value, and I think that this goes against all of their principles. But you need to weigh it with the NBA's superstar-driven league, and do you count on Bam being that guy, or do you count on signing Giannis rather than bringing in a guy like James Harden when you have the opportunity to? But going back to the Rockets, I just think that they're in such a bad spot because they lost their picks. They lost a bunch of their picks in the Westbrook deal, and now they have two superstars that are two of the more difficult superstar players in the league to trade because they're both,
Charlotte's been on the radar for Westbrook.
People look at both. That's a very Charlotte move.
Well, they have Nicholas Batum getting paid 24. So at that point,
I don't know where the Hornets are going, but
no, I do agree. They're the two most
they're
hard.
enigmas.
They're hard. I think Westbrook is the hardest one to trade.
100%.
Harden is
easy.
way easier.
I think it's easy.
Way
Yeah.
easier.
But you just need to find a team who is willing to give up has the assets and is willing to give.
I think
them
it's more
up.
about what the Rockets are going to get back because I think
Yeah,
that's going to be
yeah,
important for their
exactly.
future and the build process. I think it's about what we can get back for James Harden if it's going to be good for us in the long run.
I think that a lot of people are making the mistake of saying do something like the Thunder did. What happened with the Thunder, as great of a job as Sam Presti did, was luck
crazy.
more than anything.
Yeah.
Because you will never, in a million years, you could redo that scenario with Paul George. He will never return you the value that he did that summer only because Kawhi Leonard said to the Clippers, I'm only coming if you get another superstar, and specifically Paul George. That's the reason the Clippers gave up their whole franchise
I think
to get
OKC
him.
was able to do that because of the fact that Kawhi wanted to play with Paul George.
Exactly.
So they was able to milk out so much.
And then at the same time, they caught the Rockets, who were
They had
looking to
leverage in
make
those
a deal.
situations.
Yeah, they at the perfect time had the right pieces, and I don't think this is the perfect time for the Rockets, and I don't think they have the perfect pieces to deal. So it will take a very, very good job of rebuilding.
So you guys think?
And I don't know.
You guys think they get traded before the season starts next month?
I think
Harden
Westbrook
stays in Houston.
I think
Yeah,
Westbrook is definitely gone before December
season
22nd.
Think so?
I personally think he is. I don't see how they return to the court with everything that's
training
happened.
camp starts when? December 1st?
What do you think? Because I personally don't see how they could return to the court with everything that's gone
Houston
on
fan.
and
I
just
think
keep
they
going.
can. I think they can still return because there are some people that are saying these reports are false. I mean, PJ Tucker put up on a story a cap emoji. So I don't know. They might not think it's super true. It really depends. I mean, I think that Russell Westbrook and James Harden are best friends. I doubt that Russell Westbrook, if he can't get traded, is going to leave his best friend to play out there alone. He's going to play if he can't get traded. I don't believe he's going to sit out. No, he's going to play still. Hey, what's up, guys? You just finished watching a clip of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran.
My name is Jack Barteck.
My name is River Brown.
And we are your hosts for this podcast. We want to thank you guys for watching the clip. Like, subscribe, and comment, and share if you would care to, because it helps us grow. And we're trying to make this a full-time thing. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for supporting, and see you next time.